Okay, now we're going to do the third burger in the series of burgers. I did the basic burger, and then I did a Salisbury burger, which I also used as a steak. And now we're going to use Eco-Cuisine's chicken style quick mix. It's a vegan product, it's a dry mix, and it's available through broadline distributors directly from Eco-Cuisine and online. All of the products are the same. You can buy them in those 3 different venues. But here we're going to take the chicken style quick mix. It's a powdered mix, and this is different from the first one that I used in the original video because this is an improved version which has more texture to it. And several people have mentioned it to me that when they were making it, they would see these particles in it. Well, that is why, and it adds another mouthfeel feature to it. So to that, to make this a more of an Indian type dish with lentils, I decided to add some garam masala spice to it. I'm going to put 2 teaspoons of that in there. And I'm going to mix that to start with just to get it going. I want to mix that in. Now next, again, this is the Year of the Pulse. The United Nations declared 2016 the International Year of the Pulse, and they're trying to get more people to eat pulses. So here is another example of how we can creatively take pulses to the center of the plate. I think people would eat more pulses if the pulses were presented in a more innovative form, as in an entree or a protein. Pulses are very high in protein, but most people don't perceive them as being very high in protein. So here I'm going to bring those into the center of the plate using them as a burger and also as a cutlet. So I'm going to add the the lentils to the dry mix and mix those in. Again, as I did in the previous burgers, I added the beans and let them mix in that for a bit. And what that does is it creates a bond that's almost like a breading with the protein itself so that the pulses hold or stick to the actual protein mass. So this could set for up to, as long as you want really, you could set it for 24 hours. Ideally it's good for it to set for at least a half hour, maybe an hour. The longer the better. But for the sake of time, I'm going to just move forward with it right here, and it will still stick. It's just not going to have as strong a bond. So to this I'm going to add the water, about 3/4 of a cup of water here. I got a little extra, and the water variation depends on how wet your lentils are. If they're on the drier side, you use less water, more water. If your water's a little off, it's not going to affect it that much. To that I'm going to add the oil, 2 tablespoons of oil. And mix it up. Now you could add fresh cilantro to this if you want, or parsley and add more color, put some diced red pepper in it. And when it forms a mass, almost like a dough, then you know it's ready. See, it's a little dry, so I got a little extra water. It normally calls for like a cup and a couple of tablespoons per 8 ounces, and I had about 3/4 of a cup in there. Put the rest in. And that's it. It's ready. And the longer you mix it, the more glutinous it becomes, and that causes it to have more resistance. Okay, so I'm mixing it in here right now, and I want to put it in a shallower bowl so it's easier to handle and work with. So I'm going to put it into a shallower stainless steel bowl. And then I'm going to use a little bit of flour to kind of coat it because it's wet and kind of sticky, almost like a dough. So I can just put a little flour in there like so, and that kind of helps form it in a tight band. So you can see how the lentils are sticking together. You're always going to have a few lentils falling out of it. That's normal, but 90% of the lentils are in there. So you get this lentil garam masala flavor profile coming through on this. And again, we go back to the same process that we did with the other burgers. We bring in the pan, I take the scoop, and you can use, again, different size scoops. If this is a 3.5 ounce scoop by weight, So when I level it off, you're getting roughly 3.5 ounces. This takes scaling out of the picture. You don't have to think about weighing out 3.5 ounces. It's that easy. So I take this, and this is a little firmer than the ground beef mix. Flatten it out like so. I just put it in there until it's flat. So it's maybe 1/8 of an ounce one way or the other. No big deal. It's very close. And you can make these up in a freeze-thaw stable, so you can stick them in the freezer if you're not using them all at one time, if you're cooking a lot. You can freeze them cooked, you can freeze them raw. Either way works fine. And that little bit of flour really helps make these stick together a little better. It makes it a little easier to handle because it's like bread flour. You're using flour when you're making a bread dough, and it's a little sticky, and you want to take the stickiness out of it. Now these burgers, again, these burgers are less expensive than the beef burger. These burgers cost roughly about, with the lentils and everything in them, probably about 35, 40 cents, depending on how you buy them. Okay, so we have 5 more burgers. Put that aside. I'll bring over the paper again, and then say the plastic wrap. I'm going to go to round 3 here. Okay, so now I'm going to follow the same process I did with the burgers before. Just take a piece of plastic wrap, lay it over the top, cut it off, get it out, and take the burger press. Again, this burger press is a very sanitary thing. You can take it apart. It comes a piece to put through a dishwasher. And you got a metal version of this also. It's right here for those of you who like to use the sanitary steel one for heavy production. So what I do is I set the line on it for the thickness that I wanted for my burger. And I just press it down to that thickness, hold it there for a moment. You got a burger. Now these burgers actually have a little resistance in them, a little more resistance, so the longer you hold it down, the better. The ground beef doesn't have the same amount of wheat protein in them, so they end up holding their form much better. And then these burgers are immediately ready to go right to the grill. They don't have to sit around and wait for anything. And there's some pressure. You can always go a little extra on these because they will spring back. Okay, now we're ready to take them to the saute stage. Your oil is heated up. These are about 3.5 ounces each. The flame is low. And if you're ever making these and you brown them off a little too fast, the way they deal with that is to actually turn the heat down. Once you brown on one side, brown on the other side, and then just put a little water in there and put the lid on it and let it steam. And that will work just perfectly for, it's almost like steaming them in the saute pan. Really easy way to go about it. Because what you want to do is make sure that the protein is cooked all the way through. And just like meat, if it's spongy in the center, that means it's not fully cooked. And if it isn't, all you have to do is just reheat it more. With meat, it's a much more sensitive situation because if you overheat it, it's lost, as I mentioned before. You can't rehydrate it, but with these products you can rehydrate them. The main thing is you don't want to burn them. So I want to see, these will brown up really quick. You can see how brown that is already. So what I'm going to do is put this one, and that got some nice caramelization on them. Perfect. But see, they're not going to cook all the way through with that kind of heat. And I got the heat kind of low here. But what I'm going to do, because these are browning up so quickly, I'm going to add a little water to them, put the lid on, and just let them steam for a few minutes. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, ready to eat. The thing about them, if you steam them too heavy, they can get a little porous. They'll still have a wonderful mouthfeel to them. But the key is just to keep the heat low when you're working with these proteins. I do not need high heat. They're very, they cook really quickly. All they need to do is hit 160 degrees Fahrenheit. They do not have to get up to real high temperature. You're not dealing with salmonella and E. coli type poisons that could be in the meat. These are vegan products with no animal byproducts in them, so they're very safe in that sense. So that's how easy it is to make these burgers. And now I'm going to, while these are cooking, I'm going to plate up, show you a couple of different samples of them. Here we have the burger with the Asian slaw. And I'm going to take a little bit of my tikka masala sauce here. Now this sauce, I made it with yogurt. In the yogurt recipe, I use soy milk and I add a little starch to it. I bring it to a simmer. And then I add some lemon juice and a little salt to it. After it thickens up, the lemon juice will sour it and cause it to curd, but it will not curd and separate like buttermilk. And it's an excellent yogurt sauce. That makes the tikka masala sauce a vegan sauce because it's normally made with dairy yogurt. So I'm just going to put a little on the burger here. And again, this is how I would serve this burger if I were serving it as a burger, not as an entree. So here you have the lentil burger, and then here we have sliders made in the same way. So I just made really small versions of this. So if you want to make sliders, you can do this with the ground beef also. Very simple, it's the same process. What I did is I wrapped the chicken up in plastic wrap and wrapped it really tight, and then all I do is just take it and slice it, like so. And then I take these little pieces and I just pull the wrap off and I press them down if you want to, and you've got the equivalent of a slider. And I just brown them off. Let's see how this one is doing here. It's hot. Okay. Now we have burgers. So that took about 5 minutes to bring them into this stage. But you can see how they are right now. They're hot, they're cooked, and they're ready to eat. And this is all in 20 to 30 minutes. Very quick.